everyone. This is going to be a synopsis of my shadow box and a description of what I learned from the project. To begin, I want to point out that as passionate as I am about seeing clients as their own unique individuals, everyone has still been shaped by a system. And this was such an important thing for me to learn because on a surface level, while yes, I already had an awareness of this, but moving through this course leading to the shadow box exercise has helped me to better understand how relevant the system of origin is. Even in cases with those who do not currently have a family, they were still once influenced by someone or someone's, whether that be a parent, caregiver, guardian, or other important relationships that help shape them. Now, when I learned about transgenerational systems theory, I was so captivated by that. And this assignment has strengthened my interest in it even more because transgenerational systems theory uses stories, narratives, and memories to better understand not your client's family, but how their family system has influenced your client's lived experience. Okay, even when that experience may feel distant or unclear, they still have been shaped by an influence. I find the theory very intuitive also because it has a way of highlighting how beliefs, patterns, and behaviors can be transferred or passed down across generations, and even at times may still continue to strongly affect your client. This also connects to the concept of differentiation, which differentiation, in my view, is where all the magic happens, right? Differentiation is a little bit unlike what it sounds like in that it's not about your client particularly rejecting or disconnecting from what has been transferred to them, but instead it's about your client becoming aware of those influences and then moving on to purposefully and intentionally choosing who they want to be. And this is based on their own convictions. This could mean, for example, growing up under a certain cultural practice. Differentiation happens when your client then decides to stay with that cultural practice or not stay with it, or maybe choose to subscribe only to certain aspects or rituals of that practice, but it's the decision and it's the process and the evolution of that decision, right? It's their ability to move forward autonomously because that is their true, authentic individual calling, and that's differentiation. In my shadow box, there's a total of 9 people, that being myself, my 2 siblings, my mother and father, and my 2 sets of grandparents. In looking at the shadow box, it may appear a little bit thrown together, right? You'll see a lot of random little knickknacks in there, but every item in the shadow box is meaningful because it represents a person. For example, my sister is represented by nail polish, symbolizing how much I looked up to her and admired her style. I specifically chose the color of red nail polish because I wanted to symbolize also the tension in our relationship and the complexity of our dynamic growing up, as she was placed above me in a caretaking role during my mother's absence. And that dynamic sometimes created strain between us. While I admired my sister very much, it also meant that our interactions were sometimes marked so by structure than closeness. One of my grandfathers is represented by a pack of crackers. While I don't have very many significant memories of him, the crackers reflect my strongest recollection of him as being someone who enjoyed snacking at night, often gathering things like peanuts, popcorn, candy, chips, you name it, as soon as the evening came. I would like to think that my love for snacking at night comes from him. So it's actually appropriate that I used a pack of peanut butter crackers to represent this grandfather. You'll also see strings everywhere. Thick string represents stronger, more consistent emotional connections, while thin string represents more distant or less reliable relationships. Now, In some cases, both types of string are used together between myself and others to reflect how certain relationships included both closeness and distance at different times. This combination allows the shadow box to represent the intricacy and the layered nature of the relationships in my system rather than presenting them as fixed or one-dimensional. My shadow box does not visibly reflect differentiation, but my paper explores the differentiation I've experienced throughout different points of my life with a special spotlight over the past 4 years, in which during that time I've evolved in how I view my Christian faith. And while I've stayed with most of my core theological beliefs, I've begun to critically reflect on the behaviors and attitudes often present within my Christian community and the broader Christian culture. What beautifully ties all of this together for me is the realization that understanding where I come from has contributed to my personal clarity in understanding who I am today and who I continue to choose to become. I expect this knowledge will come full circle in equipping me to be a better therapist to my own clients. And that's it. Thanks for watching.